So
9 months of work. Yes, it is.
Right. That's why. All right. I will call the October 7th, 2025 meeting of the Community Relations Commission to order. Hello, everybody. We have John Dozel, Lori Copsey, Tim Swarsendruper, Phil Letterock, Mayor Gina Lichty, and Angela Wentz and Michael Wambaugh present. We also have Danielle Panetta with us from La Casa. So you have the agenda in front of you. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? So moved. So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Motion passes. So we'll move on to approval of the minutes from the August 5th and September 2nd meeting highlights. Had a chance to give those a look. I would entertain a motion to approve.
We move to approve the agenda minutes from the August 5th and September 2nd meeting.
Seconded. Is this better?
That's better. I want to make sure it's picking up the recording.
Yep. So do I have a second? John, thank you for that. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes. So we'll move on to item number 4, which is the La Casa report on what is happening with La Casa. And Daniela, I'll turn it over to you.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
All right, so La Casa report in terms of community building. I've been working with Chamberlain Gardens to continue to try to figure out how we're going to get them back up and running. It has been a very slow process, trying to figure out where on the plot where the park is, that the raised beds will be. And I'm just waiting on Tanya to kind of get back to me and say where exactly it is, so I can then tell the residents, hey, this is where it is. Let's get moving on some of those grants. And I don't like to sit still. So I've been talking with Purdue Extension, as they've been a long partner with the garden, and they had some financial changes, as many of us have. So we're trying to figure that out, but she's been connecting with like 4-H participants, which I thought was a fantastic idea. Not sure if she's heard back yet, but she's looking at different grants in that space. And she just mentioned to me this morning that maybe we look at sponsorships, which I thought was pretty interesting. So I kind of wanted her to go into a little bit more detail on what she was thinking on that side. And yeah, as soon as we have more info on where that will be, then we can get started. I know Little Big Idea grants is kind of the thing I'm focused on, and that's money that is almost guaranteed. I don't mean to sound like super excited about it, but I talked to the person and they're like, this is exactly what we'd like to grant money to. So $500 and then a $2,000 with a match of $800. So yeah, just waiting on placement, and then we can get going on that. The other thing is that I'm taking a group from Chamberlain, group of 7, well, 7 including Michael, to Minneapolis. So La Casa is connected with NeighborWorks America, which is our national partner for work in this area, so community building and engagement. And so every year they have what they call a Community Leadership Institute, where we get to take a group of 8, sometimes it's smaller depending on venue, where they get to attend a conference essentially, where it's 3 days of courses that they get to choose, where they get to learn something specific that's interested for them, whether it's volunteerism, whether it's working with partnership, a lot of, I'm not sure exactly what everyone chose and what path they chose, but they get to pick, which I think is a really cool opportunity. And then they get to be around the network, right? So that's all of the United States, people doing exactly what they're doing in terms of leadership in the neighborhoods. It's always an amazing event where they get to be surrounded by people that have done this work, and they get to not only network, but they get to problem solve. right? So they get to say, hey, this is what's going on in my neighborhood. How are you dealing with it in your neighborhood? So that's always a really meaningful conversation and exchange. So another great piece of that is that they literally grant money for the group to come back and do a neighborhood-based project. So that's something that we'll discuss prior to going, which will be going October 30th through the 2nd of November. But we'll have a pre-meeting to kind of get prepped for that and any logistics. And then when we get there, they'll do the courses, but then they'll also have specific time where we all get to come together as a group and kind of do like action planning and figure out what we want to do there. But yeah, that's my update. Any questions?
And I believe Kimberly Steffens
Oh, yep.
is from the Parks Department is also going on that trip as well. So
Yes.
who else in the neighborhood
Mhm.
is in line for that trip?
Yep. So Izayete, who's a part of North Goshen, and has been a longtime resident of the garden as well. Shannon Martin and I'm trying to remember all the names now. Karen Hostetler, Crystal Mufari. I'm trying not to butcher the names, but I probably am. Is that all of them? I think that might be it. Unless I'm forgetting one. And then myself, of course, and then Michael and Kimberly.
We're excited about the trip. I was looking at the program for the conference, and it's pretty entailed, and a lot of community building, a lot of
Yep.
ideas, a lot of tours. Like,
Mhm.
so we're going around to different spots and seeing what's happening in the Minneapolis area. So I think that's we're looking forward to coming back with some good ideas for the Chamberlain neighborhood, and then hopefully that can carry over to other neighborhoods as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Anybody have any other questions for Daniela?
All right.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That brings us to item number 5, and I'm excited about this one. It's a presentation by Mike King, who is managing partner and Hometown Development LLC president of the Bakery Group, based in South Bend. I had a chance to meet Mike and tour his near North Side neighborhood a couple months back, and what's happening there in South Bend. And it's remarkable what can happen a little bit at a time, very incremental, but very substantial progress. And he also, I got to hear a little bit of his 12 steps in town making. A lot of this is it's incremental economic development, but it's also community building, which I thought was a good segue into this commission about being involved. So I will turn it over to Mike and let him tell us what's happening.
Okay, thank you. So I think some of you might have an opportunity to take a look at a video that talked a little bit about what some of the results of the work that we've been doing in South Bend for the last 7 or 8 years. And the only thing I want to say before I do my presentation is that this is not my work. This is the work of a whole lot of people who have come together, and a lot of people who didn't know each other before found a place that they could come and connect, and then more people stepping up as we move along. And we didn't have a kind of commission like this in South Bend, or the kind of work that you're talking about in the neighborhood. So it sounds to me like you've already in a great position. I'm going to make a very quick presentation about the 12 steps to town making and sort of just the basic foundation of what we talk about when we talk about incremental development and neighborhood evolution. And then I'll open it up for questions. So I apologize if I sort of dump a lot on you, but I don't want to spend a lot of time, and I want to give a chance for you to sort of make your
Oh,
So I'm part of a group called Neighborhood Evolution. And basically what we're about is helping people in neighborhoods to basically create wealth for neighborhoods. And what we think the solution is to empower communities to do the work for themselves. So we're a group of practitioners. Each of the persons that are on the team have their own experience developing in their own communities. So whether it's in South Dallas, Minneapolis, one of our folks is from Minneapolis, or Buffalo or South Bend. We're all working in our own neighborhoods, but then what we do is we go out and help coach others to get ecosystems going in their own. Our pillars to town making, as we called it, are farming. The idea that we call this is not development, but farming, because the developer is there to come in, put something up, and walk on to the next development. In our case, we go into a place and we commit to it for a long period, in some cases for the rest of our lives. With the idea being that if you were a farmer and you were going into clay soil, you wouldn't plant a crop, barely get it to go, and then find some clay soil somewhere else. You keep on working that soil until it gets richer and richer, slowly and over time. Finance is, how do you figure out to make this work financially? Is this something you want to do part-time in your retirement as a side hustle? Do you want this to become a full-time job? And then how do you follow the money, which is really kind of important. We'll talk about that a little bit better in a second about what you need to do. And then form. We want to do good form. We don't talk about the gold package. We talk about the good package, but we're not talking about fix and flip. We're talking about investing in the properties so that what we leave behind is as good or as better as what we found it. So you're not using $20 faucets or something like that. Next. So what we talk about is in addition to farming, finance, and form, two other foundational concepts are, one, the idea of an ecosystem. In order to make this work, what we need to do is create an ecosystem which each different elements are working together. So the ecosystem is made up of members of the private sector, people in the public sector, such as yourselves, the not-for-profit sector, and then also the finance sector. Next. One of the other concepts we talk about is the flywheel. And the idea of the flywheel is that over time, you start slowly, but momentum grows. And when we talk about the flywheel, there's a whole group of folks in this ecosystem, whether they're the people who are, a former professor like myself, who was a community activist, whether we're talking about investors or attorneys, whether we're talking about carpenters, planners, architects, real estate agents, bookkeepers. These are all the people it takes to do this kind of incremental development. But every one of them can also become at the center and begin to sort of derive projects. And we think of everybody as town makers, not just a person who's actually driving a project. In some ways, I actually think it's the people out there, right? It's my contractors, and it's the finance people, and it's the people on the city council. Those are the town makers. Because if you think about an orchestra, person sitting up there can direct all they want, but if there's no play to play the instruments, they're not making any music. Those people can make music without the director. And so the other idea of the top flywheel is that you just, as you go, it's slow. It's like a train or a ship. It takes a long time to get going. That's that incrementalism we talk about. Your momentum grows, and as you grow, your ecosystem grows, and capacity grows. Next. So some of the people that are part of our team, Monty Anderson, he's one of the founders of the incremental movement across the country. He started over 35 years ago. Next. Bernice, she's been doing this for 13 or 14 years. She's over in New Buffalo. Over in Buffalo, New York. And she's currently on runs their historic preservation, but she works in about a mile area over there. She's just getting ready to reopen an old historic bar in her city. Next. Jim Kuhlman. Jim's been doing this for 8 or 10 years. He was also one of the founders of the incremental development movement. Jim focuses largely on new builds, and he is standing in front of a 12-plex that he built that's a passive house. It actually a building that produces as much energy as it uses. Next. Me, I started 7 years ago after having been a professor of sociology and sustainability studies, and had been a lot involved in my own neighborhood. And I do all my work in the near northwest neighborhood in South Bend, and I live 2 blocks away from sort of the center of what you would call my farm. Next. And Jenny is our most recent person. She just recently purchased a property in North Carolina, and she's become recently a property manager, but she's also an amazing person working with the whole geo mapping and such. So she's just incredible. That's the team. Next. So one of the things over the years, and it's really kind of Monty that kind of helped sort of think about and develop this, and then we all work together. But the idea of 12 steps to town making, and this is a 12-step program. We're trying to recover from bad design and bad economics. I'm going to go through and talk a little bit about what the 12 steps are very quickly, and then we can talk about how you hold a meeting. But the idea behind these 12 steps is if you follow these 12 steps, and we have a book that we've produced, just a workbook, and this is a workbook. If you see a lot of books out there that talk about doing small scale development, they'll be this thick, and you read through it, and when you're done, it's kind of, well, what do I do? Here, the idea is not to read, but to do. Although for people who are in the public sector or want to understand how they can support, if you read through this book and you understand the 12 steps, you can see where I can step in and help support the ecosystem. But if you want to do a project, you want to lead a project, this can keep you from making a lot of mistakes. Mistakes, what I like to call tuition. And we like to keep the tuition lower if we can help you out. So next. So the secret to a great town or neighborhood is it's shaped by many hands. And that's the idea of the ecosystem. The idea it takes a village, and we need everybody to be engaged. Next. So the first one is find your place. And we literally encourage people to say, where is going to be this place you're going to commit to and work? And generally speaking, it's not something that you can do from afar. You really want to be in your place. We actually ask people to find their place, and it might be a few blocks, it might be an entire town, it might be like Monty, South Dallas, and then draw a map. And a lot of people don't bother to draw the map, but believe me, it makes a difference. And before I met these folks, I actually was starting to do some of this work, and I actually had a map, and that map sits in my office, and it's right behind me when I work. Next. Get to know your neighbors. And so then once you've sort of found your place, get to know your neighbors. Your neighbors are not just the people who, you live around or live near you where you're at, but your neighbors are all those people who are in the public sector, the private sector, the not-for-profit sector, and the finance sector. Getting to know those folks by going out, being a part, shopping locally, going to meetings, volunteering, going to and supporting the not-for-profits that are around you. Next. And then be able to follow the money. What we like to do is teach people how to become attractive to money rather than how have to beg to money. In order to do that, you need to learn how to follow the money yourself, which means number one, learn how to put together a personal financial statement, a PFS. Even if you've not done that, and even if it's negative balance, that does not matter because it gives you a sense of where you're at and you can watch yourself grow. Once you've done that, then you need to be able to understand how do you do what's called a pro forma. That is, put together a document that allows you to show what is the project going to cost and what is it going to return, so that you can begin to make sure, does this work or does it not? And we start out with what we call a walking pro forma, which is something you can do very quickly to see if it's going to pencil. If it doesn't, move on. If it does, then you can get more serious. And then finally, learn how to put together a bank package. What are bankers looking for? Or what are other investors looking for when you're going to get ready to go do a project? Now, the fact of the matter is most people starting out are not going to get bank financing. You're going to get financing it yourself, friends, and family. But quite frankly, learning how to put that bank package together so that you can even show friends and family and yourself begins to show that you're a professional, begins to make you attractive to money and get you ready for when your flywheel takes you to that point that you might get money. I started out with this, having worked a 30-year career at the university, thinking, I'll use some of my retirement fund. I'm never going to take out a loan. Well, then I went to a workshop, did a pro forma, and found out I can make a lot more using other people's money than using my own. So changed my money. My mind. But these are the kinds of things you learn. When I first started, I wasn't there. I wasn't ready. Next. Step 4, hire the pros for your organization. You need to have an attorney, and that's ideally an attorney who works with land, with real estate. You need to have a good accountant. Maybe you can do some of your own accounting and bookkeeping, but you need to have a CPA if you are not one. You need to have a real estate agent if you're not one. And these days, particularly if you're doing commercial, which means either commercial properties or anything more than a fourplex, which counts as a commercial property, you need to have an insurance agent because insurance is no longer something that is easy to get. And you need to understand that because if you can't get insurance, you can't get a bank loan. And so having that team, and what we find is a lot of people think, oh, I can sort of, put together my own LLC. It only costs $150 online. Well, that's not an LLC that's going to pass the muster if you're trying to get a grant with the city or you're going to a bank. So having that legal stuff, and a lot of people say, well, maybe I can save myself some money. Well, the fact of the matter is, in the long run, it'll cost you. I thought that I didn't need a CPA. That cost me $7,000. That was tuition. And we like to say start small because that way your tuition is a little bit less than if you started with a big project. Next. So we're to step 5 before we're even starting to take a look at a first project. But now the idea is now you can look for your first project, but what you can do is go out and begin to think about, what am I trying to do? Is it going to be, and we tend to recommend start your first project with a small renovation, commercial or residential, if you've not been doing this before. Now, we meet a lot of people who've been doing this. And so a lot of times they're already into this process. What we often find is that they might have skipped 1 or 2 of those early steps. So even though they know a lot, we can help them sort of support themselves and move on to the next process. But if it's somebody who's kind of new to the game, then what we're recommending is, get out there and find a house. If you're young, move into it. Live into it while you fix it up, or if it's a small commercial process, you're going to do a lot of the work yourself. But what you do is you do that walking pro forma until you find out whether or not it pencils. And if it pencils, we have what's called the 10 deal killers. And the 10 deal killers are the things that you need to pay attention to. For example, is there asbestos on that property? Does it have utilities going to it? We have somebody who bought a vacant lot and the utilities didn't go to the end of the block. The city's not going to pay $40,000 just so you can put something up there. So these kinds of things you need to check out. Once it pencils and you fix the deal killers, then we say, okay, now you can fall in love with the project and move on. Next. Clean, clean, clean. The first thing we recommend is once you get that property, clean it up. And we suggest start with the outside and go to the inside. And a lot of people, when they get these properties, say, well, I'm going to fix up the inside because then I can start to rent it out. Well, for us, the property is not the project. The project is the farm. The project is your neighborhood. The project is your community. And so whatever you do inside doesn't have that impact. If you clean up on the outside, that immediately begins to tell people something's happening. And by the way, when you begin to do that, you'll get to know your neighbors. Mm-hmm. So when I started doing my first project, which was an old flower shop that had been a drug house that needed to be renovated, the first thing I went and did is I went and I edged all the sidewalks on both sides of the block on my properties, but on other properties too. And while I was doing that, I met a guy who was a handyman. For the first 2 or 3 years, he was a lifesaver for me. And then as you begin to do that, people say, gee, I'm looking for, I know a tenant or I have a property, whatever. And then clean the inside up. And then also clean up your own life and your own system and your own files. One of the things you're going to find out is if you only got 1 or 2 properties, it can be okay if you're kind of a mess. But if once you start to get more than 1 or 2 properties, it's not like that. I just spent today labeling the keys for my current project. I have 42 different keys that are going in this building. And so I've got them all labeled up and I've got them all set up in a little spreadsheet that says what they are, because I tell you what, it was one thing to hand 6 keys on, some hooks for 2 properties. It's a whole different matter to have 42 keys for a third of one. Next, please. Assemble your crew. What are you going to need, in terms of architects, in terms of engineers, in terms of contractors, HVAC, electric, plumbing. What about landscaping? And what do we think about is what can we do and what can we hire? And then bringing that crew together. And again, the way that flywheel works is your crew is going to be different at different stages. If you're just doing a single family renovation or maybe a little duplex, or you're doing a small commercial building, your crew might be yourself and some friends and family. But if you start to move on to a larger building, now you maybe need to get some contractors. If you get to a real big building, then you're talking about firms, a firm like Ancon or something like that. So the thing is you get to know these folks. If you start again with the smaller project, you begin to learn and you begin to meet people and you get to know people rather than sort of jumping in and not knowing anybody who you can trust and not having relationships that you need with those contractors. Next, please. So we talk about design and build with the end in mind. And the idea there is, okay, once you've got that project figuring out, what are you going to do? Are you going to hang on to it? or are you going to sell it? That's going to affect a couple of things you do. And then you want to figure out, what do we need to do? If it's a new build, you've got that figured out because you've got your architects, you put that together. And that's fairly straightforward, although you got to pay for the architecture and such. But if it's a renovation, then there's just all kinds of things. Once you start to do a renovation, you start to peel stuff off and find out what's there. You're just going to find thing after thing. So what you tend to do is we want to bring people into the buildings with us. And we actually say, put the architect and the engineer in the back and get your most experienced contractor and let them walk you in the front, because they have more experience. They know what's going on with these buildings, and they can save you a lot of money because they can tell you good ideas. And then once you've kind of got it all figured out, then you can begin to start paying for somebody to draw what you need to draw to get your permits and such. Next. Choose your construction path. Are you going to be your own general contractor? Are you going to run it yourself? Are you going to handle a construction manager, which means you'll take care of the finances, but the construction manager will manage on-site construction? Are you going to hire a general contractor and they take care of it all? And once again, that usually depends on the scale of your project. The first one, you're probably going to do it yourself. As you begin to move on, maybe you'll get a construction manager. You may or may not get to the point where you need a general contractor, or over time, you might learn how to be a GC yourself. But again, it's always about matching your capacity to the character and context of the project in which you're working. And then your flywheel continues to grow. When I first started, I was just, as I say, helping to do a couple of renovations. I'd done some of that for myself as a homeowner. I'm now a co-general contractor for this large 56,000 square foot building I'm working on right now. And I've got an architect who's also a partner as a co-general contractor. So we were able to do that together. But it took me 6 or 7 years to get to this point. And without my architect partner, who's way better than I am, there's no way I would be doing this. I would be hiring a general contractor. Next. Then activate the space. And so we always like to say, keep some tenants in your back pocket. And if you've been out there getting to know your neighbors, you're going to be, you're going to have people coming around wanting to take a look at your place, interested in sort of renting and stuff like that. I've never had to go beyond my neighborhood listserv to rent out any of the residential properties I've done. And even my first 2 small commercial properties, they were all done by just letting word of mouth. Now with this building I've got, I'm looking to fill about 26 to 30 spaces to start with. And I haven't really gone online on much marketing yet because we're just about ready to open up. We're just getting ready to open up and get pre-occupancy. But I've already got 6 offices and 4 retail spaces filled up. And again, that's from people from the neighborhood hearing about what we were doing and coming to us and saying, we'd like to be part of this. Next. This is one of the core issues of succeeding, is being able to do property management. Again, if you've got a couple of properties, residential or commercial, it's not too hard to do that yourself. If you start to move beyond that, or if you're thinking to yourself, I'm not just going to do 1 or 2 properties, like, we've got neighbors who've done a house next door across the street. They're not planning to do anything more. You don't need to get into fancy property software or anything like that. If you think you're going to do this more seriously, then learning how to do this from the beginning makes sense. And I can tell you that because I did not. And so I've spent the last few weeks learning something called Door Loop, which is a new property management software. And fortunately, I only had done a few properties before, but I got kind of out in front of this one. And I was so thrilled the other day that I was able to get 6 of my tenants signed up, and they were actually able to pay their rents and their security deposit online. If you had asked me to be able to do that 6 weeks ago, I would have said, I don't know how that works. But these are the kinds of things, again, flywheel, learning how to do this and working. And if you start small, which it would have been smarter if I had done that, I wouldn't have to learn how to do this for 20 really quick. I could have done 1, then another, but again, that's tuition, time, and money. And then finally, step 12, share with others. And the idea is, you only can take with you what you give away. And what we do is we want to sort of share with others, support others, contribute to community, be part of your community, serve in your community, be on commissions. If you're energized enough, maybe run for a city council or run for office. Certainly support and be part of your not-for-profits or educational institutions. One of the things we like to encourage people to do is really focus on the youth. Are there ways that you can help those organizations working with youth begin to understand this? We think that every person who's an entrepreneur or who's a contractor should become their own owner, their own developer. They should own their own business. They should, not their business, but also the building. If they're a contractor, maybe you're working for me during the week, but you should be working for somebody yourself on the weekend. And one of the things we're starting to talk about is, it's been hard sometimes to get people into the contracting field. Well, maybe if they knew that getting into the contract field meant they were also becoming a small scale developer and they were going to be able to own property and build a future for themselves and their families, they might be more interested in doing that. So there's some interest going there. Next. So we like to say, does small scale development count? This is the impact that the work that I've been doing with my team in the near Northwest neighborhood over a period of from when we started in 2016 to when I hope to be done in 2031. We will have touched 3.12 acres, some 20 some properties. When we first started working, all of those properties were paying altogether $2,600 a year in taxes. So I just went and paid, we're now up to almost $18,000 on those properties. So, when we talk to people about, what kind of investment can cities make, and get a return on investment, investing in your small development ecosystem is huge. And the other thing about it is we're not going anywhere, right? We're not a Dollar General, not heading out. Somebody out there in California is not going to make a decision that we're shutting down the Starbucks in your town. Because, if it's Ben running his botany flower shop, or it's Hans running his coffee place, he's sticking for the hard times because this is his place. One of the things that we try to encourage people is that a lot of times people in development offices in cities think, oh, the goal is to sort of bring people in from the outside. And sometimes they recognize what we do is, well, you can help create the quality of life that help bring those people from outside. But we're trying to suggest to folks, no, your people are the ones who are here. If folks want to come from the outside, that's great. Let's take advantage of it. But, we've got to think longer than the next 5 years or the next 20 years. I mean, South Bend is the place. Studebaker, right? Built a community and destroyed it when it left. We don't want to have another South Studebaker that we have to worry about 20 or 30 years from now. Of course, if they want to come in, that's great. But let's make sure that in the meantime, we've also built our community. Our people are the ones that are going to be here and can make the difference. So next. So the other thing we talk about is these what we call 12-step meetings and how you hold them. We've got a certain set of criterion and a way to do it. It's pretty simple. It's once a month. First ones were started in my house. 6 or 7 people would come to those. We've got about 25 to 30 people that come to our 12-step meetings. Not all the time the same ones, about 12, 13 each month. And then we have 4 times a year, we have a meeting, not just a 12-step meeting, but a happy hour. Because the 12-step meetings are usually the people who are leading projects coming in. But the happy hour is for the people who are in the ecosystem supporting all those folks. When we do a happy hour, and our city now sponsors those, we get 80 to 110 people that show up for those. And we'll be having one Wednesday, October 22nd or 23rd. I'll let Michael know if any of you want to come over there and join the happy hour and see what's going on and talk to the folks. Usually a couple of council members show up. Sometimes their mayor does. And that's the group. Next. So that's it. We don't need to look at that. Anything else after that? Next. There we go. So that's kind of just a really fast sort of look. As I say, what we've just talked about is outlined in our book called 12 Steps of Town Making. There's also a Strong Towns video series that people can get. We basically, go and we help cities think about how do I get ready to support this kind of development and also help support developers learning how to do this. But the fact of the matter is, if you get the book or you get the Strong Town series, you don't need us. We can maybe help you move faster. That's up to you. But our goal is to really is to restart what we did. Goshen, South Bend, these communities were built this way. Maybe they didn't have a 12-step figured out and they didn't have a workbook, but it was basically people coming together, starting out small and slowly building up. It's only in the last, 20, 30, 40, 50 years that we now have big developers coming into communities with big master plans, putting a bunch of stuff down all at once and usually taking the money out somewhere else. Our cities were built this way. And we think that, to maintain a strong middle class, we need to continue to foster this kind of development. I'm not saying it's the only kind of development. We just think it's an important tool to have in our quiver for our communities. So with that, I'll open it up to any kinds of questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mike. That was fascinating as usual. So this is the second time I've sat through that, and I feel like I learned something new every time. How can a group like our group, I guess, help support this type of advancement within the community?
What we talk about is getting a group, getting a monthly group that starts meeting together to talk about this stuff. The way a typical 12-step meeting works is it's an hour and 15 minutes. You start on time, you end on time. We start by introducing ourselves quickly. And then one person in the group talks about then we talk about what are all the 12 steps. So we just repeat them so that over time, what happens is you come to the meetings, you get to know and know those steps. We have some flyers out there. You can take one of these off our website. They're free. Just getting together and having that monthly place you can go to meet, and then having people start to come there. And what you need is a champion or two. And a champion is just somebody who's willing to basically start to put together a spreadsheet with names on it, find a place that you can meet, and send out an invite. And then you basically meet the meeting. So I'm the person who started our meetings. We didn't have 12-step meetings when I first started. When I first started, it was when one of the team members, Monty or Jim or Bernice, would come to town. I would invite people to my house to meet them and to talk. And that starts out at 7 and then 12 and 20 and 30. And then the city, after about 3 or 4 years, saw, wow, this is working. And then they started to jump in. So again, this did not happen quickly over time. And then about 3 years ago, we had the 12-step kind of set up together. So now we have the 12-step meeting once a month. And then we have these happy hours 3 or 4 times. And we meet in the library downtown South Bend, and my invite list for the 12 steps that I send out to the regular participants is about 30 people on it right now. I let the entire ecosystem, which is our people who are supporting us in all 4 of those sectors, know we're meeting, and I invite them. They rarely come. We've got 200 people that have come in, that's in our ecosystem now. These are the people who are the contractors, the bankers, the city officials, the architects, engineers, real estate folks. These are the folks who are not-for-profits interested in this kind of work and want to support it. And in one way or another, we've met with them, and they let us know that. So when you come to one of our meetings, to say a 12-step meeting, you say, Mike, I need a contractor that can help me do this. Well, here's Jose, or here's somebody else, depends on what you need. I'm looking for a bank, Mike. Okay, well, I've got 3 bankers that I can introduce to you right now that want to support this kind of work. If you have done your homework and you're ready to go there, we can help you. So the best thing, I think, is just getting a monthly meeting going. And they're informal. And whether or not you focus on the 12 steps, I think focusing on the 12 steps is a good thing because it teaches people. But we only sort of, as I say, we sort of say, okay, this is meeting. You each talk about who you are, try to keep people to sort of, I'm so-and-so with 1 or 2 cents to begin with, then go on, say, these are the 12 steps. And we just say 1, 2, 3, 4, this is it, that's it. Today we're going to be talking about, so it's step 9. So step 9, we're step 10 now. So step 10 is property management. So then one of us will talk about property management, sort of talk about what's engaged and what's involved in that. If you don't know or what's in that, you can look at this. It's really just, a 10-minute sort of discussion of property management. Then we open it up. Okay, what have been your experiences with property management? And then after about another 10 or 15 minutes, then we open it up for everybody to talk about anything that they're interested in. So that, we kind of focus on the 12 steps, focus on one step, talk about people's different experiences. And then the last 30 or 40 minutes of the meeting is to talk about what are your challenges? What are your successes? What are you working on now? How can we help you? And it's just really just kind of supporting each other. And what happens is over time, people who start coming to these meetings might stop. We've got several people, who are not really coming to meetings. They tend to be the folks who have sort of moved up. So we've got Jordan and Tony. We're doing separate renovations themselves. Each of them, they started 4 or 5 years ago. a year ago, they created something called Inner City Development. And they started working together, and currently they are just finishing their 4th or 5th duplex for a group called Inten Indiana. And they're putting together a development agreement with the city where they're going to be building 35 units in my farm. In property that I was going to build on, that I had an agreement with the city to be able to build on, but I wouldn't be able to do it for 4 or 5 years. And so again, share with others. If I can get those guys to come in and do this over the next 2 years, that's just off my plate. And they're going to do some good work. We've got Sarah Hill. She started out as a librarian maybe about 7 years ago. 2 years ago, she left her job as librarian because she's now able to do her own work and support herself. She's got about 25 to 27 residential units. And then she's doing something called the Monroe Arts Building, which is a building across from the post office in South Bend. Probably about 20,000 square foot building. And then we've got Charity. She's doing 2 buildings just kitty corner from that. So there's just a lot of people working at different levels from, you know, a couple of people just contacted me, Hannah and her husband. They inherited a house in Portage. They're going to fix it up, sell it, and they live in South Bend. They're going to start doing development in South Bend. So they're coming to just get started, to just hurry. And the last person I'll talk about is somebody by the name of Bert. Bert came to our meetings starting about 18 months ago. And he came, and after about 16 months, he's a retired school teacher. He said, you know what? I bought a property with my brother and our wives, and they're now fixing up. And they're doing the whole thing themselves because they got this space. So, you know, if you take a look at what's going on in South Bend, and you saw that video, right now, we've got about 30 people who know each other, who are committed to this kind of work, who the city is aware of, and they're doing well over $30 million worth of work right now together.
Wow, that's really fascinating. Mike, thank you so much for coming today and sharing your ideas. Very inspirational. This group is rooted in a human rights commission, and the folks here are very socially justice oriented and looking at ways that we can grow within and grow prosperity throughout our community. And we've really been working at making sure that this body is proactive in outreach and engagement. And one of the ways that we've tried to facilitate that over the last 2 years is that the Community Relations Commission facilitates several walkabouts in the summer where we actually take a walk through a neighborhood in the city. Often it's a neighborhood where we've had folks in the community who've reached out who have identified that there are some challenges in that community that need to be addressed. And that's the impetus for walking through the neighborhood. And then we will invite different folks from different departments within the city to actually walk on foot through that neighborhood and see from the neighbors level, like what is going on here. It's not a drive-by. It's not a, you know, just a series of reports or somebody coming to a meeting, but we actually walk with the group through the neighborhood. And then out of that, try to identify a series of steps that we could take to bring resolution to those issues or work together, you know, to help support that neighborhood. And sometimes it's just a particular neighbor that might have a really devastating need. This body also helps facilitate the partnerships that the city has with its not-for-profit partners as well. But your 12-step program is very intriguing to me. We will be purchasing a copy of each of your book for each of the members here, because I think that could be another tool in the CRC's handbook of methodology that we use to be proactive in our engagement and try to facilitate meaningful change from within.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I didn't say, but I would like to add is that the difference between what was done, you know, when our cities were built and what's being done now is we're intentional.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to make sure that everybody is at the table.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other case. It's not just the rich white guys like me, and I'm not so rich, but you know, to get invited to the Christmas party on the top of the building, you know, down. You know, to get to shake the hands and know all those folks. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's, you know, it's meeting with folks in the neighborhoods and making sure they're there from day one, not some plan that's been made. Oh, by now you can come make some comments on it. But by the way, you know, if you see all those fancy drawings, you know, it's kind of like, hey, the bus has already left, right? This is about starting from the beginning and building together and letting the group decide
Mhm.
where it's going to go. What we have here is a series of principles. These are not prescriptions. They're basic principles that, depending on who you are, what your farm looks like, and what your ecosystem looks like, you're going to apply them in different ways.
Mhm.
But that's the beauty of the system. And it takes time. But over time, we've seen this have impact in the cities that we can work in. South Bend, one of the reasons that I was asked to join Bernice and Monty and Jenny was Jim was to I started bringing them, to the community and getting more people engaged. And things worked. It was that engagement. It was really going beyond just training up developers, but getting the city ready with some zoning changes. We did some other programs put on together, but helping to create that ecosystem. And so
Mhm.
they asked me to come join them as a group when they formed Neighborhood Evolution, because I was kind of like their student,
Mhm.
which was an interesting place to be as a
Mhm.
professor.
Mhm.
But I had learned and I followed the steps and as much as I could, and they worked. And so now we go around, as we say, trying to help other people get started as best they can and support anyway. So getting a book to start with is great. And then, if at some point in time you want us to come back and do any kind of a talk, any kind of coaching or anything like that, whatever. But we're more than happy to support you in any way we can. And if you want to come over and visit our area anytime, I'm happy to host anybody anytime.
Mike, first of all, thank you. And I watched the video and I think is this your neighborhood? Is that in that?
Yeah, near Northwest neighborhood
Old Measles School area? Or-
Yeah. We're actually a little south of Miso School, but yeah.
Okay, I used to walk from Leaper Park area.
Oh, yeah. Well, I
right
just live up.
The
from-
Holy Cross School. Yeah, so
Yeah,
used to
yeah,
walk
I
through
just
that
live 2
neighborhood
blocks from
as a
Leaper Park.
child. My question is, people tend to be skeptical.
Yeah.
Get a lot of naysayers.
Yep.
And I realize after a certain point, hit critical mass and things begin to go. But as I'm looking at all these different people on your flywheel, what was your biggest challenge of just getting that initial spark going?
It was just to do it.
Yeah.
It's just to do it. You've got to have what we call champions or what we would call cheerleaders. A champion can be a person as a developer, but a champion can also be a city official. It can be a person from a not-for-profit. They come from different places, in the ecosystem, but they're willing to say, I'm just going to keep on going ahead. Nobody gives anybody on this, right? I mean, the people in South Bend knew me, right? I helped start their sustainability, their Green Ribbon Commission. I served on their Board of Zoning Appeals. I ran unsuccessfully for City Council. They knew me. And so if I would have come out when I first started doing this work in 2017 and said, hey, I want you guys to give me a $300,000 TIF grant so I can work on this building here, they would have said, Mike, we know you, we love you. And because of that, we're not giving you a dime. Right? What it was about is it was just, okay, we've got this group and we didn't ask the city to come, right? I mean, what happened is I saw these guys in Flint. So I said, we need to bring this group to South Bend. So I came back to South Bend and I raised $21,000. I got the city to kick in forward, but I raised the other 17. That's what I did when I was at university, because I wanted them to come here because I thought that if they saw one of our workshops, then they would get excited about it. And that's what happened. And then after seeing that, then they started bringing the group back every year for the last 5 or 6 years. And we helped do the zoning reforms. When I did my first project, I haven't even finished it yet, but the first project we looked at was putting 7 houses where 7 houses used to be. We had to have 36 variances for that. That cost me $12. I can do that by right now because they changed the zoning. When we went to do a tiny house, we were going to do that. It was going to be this is 5, 6 years ago. It was going to be $150,000 project altogether. When we sold it, we'd make 15. Well, when we started to do that project, we found out the sewers were 17 feet down.
Oh, God.
That was my $15,000 project done. That's still a vacant lot.
Mm.
But then the city put in together a sewer reimbursement program that now helps support that.
Mm.
And then what we found out is when people want to do projects, one of the biggest that gets in the way of people doing infill projects and things like that is the cost of the $6,000 to $8,000 you've got to do with the surveyor and the architect and everything, getting your plans ready. So the city put together with some architects, we helped them hire the Jens, 2 Jennifers. pre-approved plans. So now you have pre-approved plans for several types of housing in South Bend that you can go online and get a copy for free. And those are approved by the building department. So if you don't go and screw around with those things, you know, you can move around with the inside a little bit, but you can have building plans ready to go. And there's lots that the city will, you know, put in place, you know, give you at a good price to be able to do that. Now, all of this took, now we're going on year 8. And as I say, for the first 4 years, the city was paying us to come in and train developers and, you know, do a little bit of this work here and there. But paying the other group, at that time, I wasn't part of them. I was learning from them. But it just, it took the critical mass of staying with it. Because when we first started, I didn't know anybody else. There's 4 or 5 people that are now part of our ecosystem that were doing this before me. There was Joni, she did 6 or 8 houses. She was a historic preservationist. Tim Wirecris had done about 20. Steve Licky, you know, he and his wife did a couple. And then I lived just a block and a half away from them. I made where they were. We didn't know each other, and the city didn't know us. And now we know each other, and the city knows us because we're meeting and they see what we're doing, and we've been able to sort of bring attention to that. That makes a difference. And also, we tell our people, you can't go down to the city and say, hey, I need $100,000 or $200,000 to do this project. And if you don't do it, it's because you're bad, you don't like me, and you're not treating me right. Because that's not the way it works. But I mean, a lot of people, you know, kind of feel like that. And so one of the things that the city does now is when somebody comes and says they want something, they send them to us. And then that helps, you know, get them ready. And then if they decide that they're going to stick with it, eventually they can get to the point where they will get those loans, but they're not going to get that loan year 1.
Other questions? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not facilitating this meeting.
Other questions?
Sorry,
Stepping on my
Michael.
toes over there.
When was the date of that open house or the can't remember what you call it.
It's going to be from like 5 to 7 at a place called the Rocky Button. And it will be, it's a happy hour, and it'll be on October 22nd. Yes,
What was the name of that place? The Rocky?
Rocky Button.
Never heard of the Rocky Button.
It's in that, it's right across from the post office, and it's in the Monroe Arts Building, one of our developers.
Okay, yeah.
But anyways, I'll send Michael the information on that, and you guys will, you'll get an invite. You can bring anybody you want to come over and take a look at. Usually what happens now when the team comes to South Bend 3 times a year, and the first night we do a happy hour on Wednesday, on Thursday, or on Friday, whatever. Say first night, we do the happy hour. The next day we spend coaching. We usually do somewhere between 6 to 8 on-site visits with actual projects going in. We coach with folks. We also have coaching hours that we can coach them from virtually too. So sometimes they've been coached virtually, but when we come into town, we actually visit the projects. And then on the final day, we have a half-day workshop. So last day's workshop was leasing. Before that, it was, you know, construction form. This workshop's going to be on property management and all the different elements that go into doing good property management. When we first started doing the workshops, we actually were focusing more on the 12 steps. But now that we've been through those, we're sort of now going into a little bit more in depth in different sorts of projects and what we do.
Any other questions for Mike?
How many professors and teachers are part of your group? Sounds like there's a strong,
Well, I mean,
I'm
that's good
detecting a
question.
theme.
I mean, actually, I think we got one teacher. We've got another guy we're trying to suck in. He just retired from Notre Dame Architecture Department, so he's a likely person to kind of come in. But I mean, if I think about it, you know, Tim Wirecris, his brother is over in Japan and has got some money, and Tim just started doing this work, and so that's his job. Jordan Richardson was a solar field, worked for Innovative Solar. He used to do multi-million-dollar solar field contracts. Now he does this. Tony Ruiz was a kind of advisor for the school system, was doing that. Sarah was the librarian. Charity, she was a floor contractor. She would refinish floors and do some refinishing, Barbara, she was a contract manager for her son. Now she's doing her own stuff here. So, it's different types of people from all around, but we find that typically people who are contractors or people who have the ability to kind of understand finance. Those two seem to be the good ones because the contractors can do the work, the finance people keep themselves from going out of business and learn how to do the work. And then somebody like me or the teachers, I guess we just learn how to learn so we can kind of catch up. And, the teachers and the professors, often, many of them did this kind of work in the summer, right? Allowed to do in summer, so
I love your farming metaphor, by the way. I plan on borrowing that.
yeah,
think
well,
that's a great,
I just
an
really,
apt metaphor for community development and grassroots development and community engagement. It's great.
and if you ever hear Monty talk, he'll talk about how, whether it's karma, whether it's God's grace, whether it's the laws of the universe, depends on, where you're coming from. But when you make that commitment to a place, it changes.
Mhm.
And we've all experienced that. Every one of us experienced that. As a matter of fact, for me, about maybe 12 weeks ago, I'm on my couch and I get a phone call and it's Taryn from the Elkhart Regional Partnership. They say, Mike, I'd like to talk to you about the Ready Grant. We got a Ready Grant for a building.
Mhm.
And I said, yeah, well, what's up? He says, well, we've got a person who can't use their money and we're wondering if you might be able to use it. Would you like another $450,000?
Absolutely not.
That's the kind of stuff that happens. For my bakery building, my dream when that thing started was I want a cafe, I want a yarn shop because knit shops are the greatest social place you can have, and I want a beauty salon. So 3 of my first tenants, cafe, women coming in wanting to sell yarn, and just got a couple of folks to do a beauty salon. Gonna call themselves Grunge and Grace, a couple of young women, and I love it. So, I don't know what it is, but I think it's when you commit to your place and you connect to your community, these things happen. And so when you say, are people cynical? Yeah, there's people cynical. But, the way I do this, because I used to throw lines when I was younger, stuff. And I've been on the big lines. And I think we need that. We need dogs that'll, take people to the river. But we also need people who are going to give them a bridge. For me, it's sort of like, all of you who want to argue with me, you stand here. All of you who want to help me make a difference, you stand here. When I'm done with these folks, I'll talk to you. Well, these days, there's 3 lifetimes. I mean, the one thing that gives me hope right now is that we've seen a lot of people coming out of the workbook saying, you know what? Let's not worry about what's going on in places we can't affect. We can change our lives right here and we can make a difference right here. And there's lots of people wanting to do that. And the secret is we need to bring everybody to the table and start work with people we didn't used to know or didn't look like us. If we do that, then, we're going to have great communities. And, we're already doing it. And so we already have great communities in Goshen and in Elkhart and in South Bend, and in LaPorte. And these, we've got that core there. And so this is just another step to help us. Thank you all very much.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, take care.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes.
Safe travels, Mike. We'll see you again. No, and I'm proud to say that my son Bryce, who is an electrician, helped work on the bakery building that he's talking about. So shout out to my son.
Good job, Bryce.
But yeah, I think that's wonderful for us to hear, just that community building aspect, being proactive, and being patient. I think one of the things that stuck with me that Mike said before is, when you start to get frustrated, just look at it and do the next easiest thing. And that builds upon it. It just builds and builds, and then you can get to where you want to go. So, but yeah, that was an enjoyable presentation. I'm glad. So, but we'll move on to, unless anybody has anything else they want to add on that.
I have a question just on a local level. Do we have anyone that we know has any kind of interest in our community to start something like that? Or is this for us to start being kind of like a lighter to spark a flame?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes and yes. No, I've been approached by a number of people who are interested in continuing to help do infill projects in the city who are from this community and want to make investments in Goshen. And so they're ready to do something like that. And so, one of the things that we're looking at doing is some master planning for, the our downtown area. But where I see the power of this group really manifesting itself is the outreach and engagement through neighborhood connections and finding challenge spots that maybe aren't on everyone's radar other than, maybe PD visits there too much, or maybe, our ordinance gets called out to issue tickets. Well, what are the deeper issues that we could identify and provide some creative solutions? How can we help that neighborhood coalesce? Or can we help find those neighborhood champions who would be willing to step forward, and we can support them along the way? And the work that we're doing with the neighborhood organizations, yes, it's part of connections and it's part of building just stronger relationships and making sure people have access to city resources, but it's also about empowerment. So how do we find those people who might be interested or need those additional steps along the way that we could help be a facilitator for that project and bringing people together?
So this could be another thing that we could add to our First Friday information distribution kind of thing, as well as other steps.
Correct. Yeah, I think the first step for us is to make sure that we deepen our understanding of the methodology. And he mentioned the Strong Towns book, which I encourage all of you, if you haven't already, to follow the podcast or buy the first book. Chuck, oh my
Well,
gosh,
Strong Towns.
Strong Towns. Marone. Thank you. Mahron. He calls himself, I think, a recovering city engineer. And no, there's a whole Strong Towns movement. And then New Urbanism is another powerful tool that cities are leveraging to basically look at how cities were designed for hundreds of years in this country. And then all of that got upended post World War II, when we had this massive amount of abundance in this country and we thought we had limitless amounts of land, and we started imposing zoning laws and just building our cities out away from the center. And we built tons of infrastructure that was ultimately unsustainable, and suburban neighborhoods that had no connections to the things that he was identifying today. So no cafes, no place to get your hair done, no third spaces to gather in, just uniform development types. And so what Strong Towns is doing and what New Urbanism is doing is looking at, are there ways to reintroduce the best of what cities have to offer in some of those neighborhoods and ensure that there is abundance being created and economic sustainability being created neighborhood by neighborhood? And how do we as a city make sure that as we're selecting how we develop, that we're doing it in ways that build wealth and support for our local neighborhoods, and we're not draining or for our local community, and not draining resources out to get to a developer who pops in and pops out. I love his farming metaphor. So yeah, those I think would be some great, if you like nerdy community development stuff, which I love listening to those things and those podcasts. I think you'll find it fascinating.
It is amazing to me, like early Goshen, the trolley system that they had. It was such a great network that was very valuable to the city, that's now under pavement and not used anymore. The hydroelectric canal producing energy, that was brilliant, great, and it's not being used anymore. So yeah, we've almost, I felt like we were more progressive then than we are now as far as community.
Yeah.
efforts.
Well, people would live on top of the stores that they owned, right? So you didn't
Yeah.
have,
Mhm.
you didn't have the additional burden of a second building to finance if you wanted to have an enterprise. It literally lived in the store apartment above your store that you owned. And so there's wealth baked into that. And now we want people to have businesses over here and their homes over here. And so we don't allow people to have businesses in their homes now out in the suburbs anymore. So you have to have a separate space that you're paying money to maintain. Plus you have to maintain the lawn at your house. So we're draining wealth from that kind of system. So how do we create mixed use development where people can have those opportunities again? How can we reintroduce that in a way that's socially tolerable to communities as well? Because people have become accustomed to their half-acre huts and, so lots to work through over time. But I think there are also, just the infill projects. So where is there an open lot? Or is there an old rundown store in a neighborhood that we might be able to equip that neighborhood to reinvest? Maybe there's somebody within that neighborhood. I look at like there's the empty, it used to be Meadowlark cars,
Mhm.
like, wouldn't that be an amazing grocery store or, cafe or something like that for that neighborhood? Things like that. Where are there existing infrastructure components that we might be able to, I see our role as connecting with the neighborhood, learning the people that are there, and seeing if there are ways that we can help identify resources and connections for them or community support for them. And
I
then,
just wonder, I'm sorry.
Nope.
Go ahead.
no, I'm
So you go-
just babbling.
In the last month, two separate conversations, and they sort of fit together. And one was a group of us parents who have kids who may not be able to buy a house. And so they were saying, well, why don't we have like tiny houses, that people can start as starter homes, and that would be, so this would be a resource that Mike has, this, get a group together and say, actually, well, maybe something that can happen. And the second idea that was also fascinating was this entrepreneur incubator space that some town has created, these little, basically mini buildings
Mhm.
that have 1 year rents on them to see if you can get a business started and going, and then you have to either move out or full or something. I mean, so again, there ought to be a group taking the 12-step program and talking about it.
Mhm.
So otherwise, it's just ideas and talk in
Mhm.
your backyard while you're grilling.
Mhm.
That's fascinating. A good resource.
I kind of feel like, again, Goshen did have like a tiny house neighborhood over by, well, all the houses that were demolished over by the bridge on.
Post office.
Yeah. So there's really small houses over there, a lot of them. I remember as a kid, like, those are really tiny, but it suited a purpose for,
Mhm.
where you could start.
And again, my question is, this commission, how do we help facilitate those conversations, those first steps? And, maybe this guidebook, his 12-step guidebook is something we can utilize, but I'm kind of with Phil here, this is just conversation right now,
Mhm.
but is there actionable items we can kind of prep for and have in place so that when we do find these champions, we can step right up and say, yep, here's how we can help you. Here's the tools we have, the financing. I don't know what that might be at this point in time, but how do we take some actions now, kind of prep ourselves for that?
Is it just as easy as deciding to have a meeting, inviting people to
I was
that?
gonna say, a few years ago, the commission hosted discussion meetings and we just put the topic out and people would show up wherever we hosted it. So you could structure it. Here's the topic, here are the main points, and then have breakout discussion tables. That's what we used to do.
what I could see as being an effective methodology is one, we commit to learning the 12-step program. And by the time we are ready in 6 months or whatever to do our first walkabout, perhaps we take a different approach to that walkabout. Like maybe we identify something, we're selective in who we invite, and we do our first run at actually implementing that type of program as a trial. It'll go a lot faster than we think. Over the winter, there's a couple things that this body will be tasked with doing. One is reviewing Teresa's HUD. Oh my gosh, Mike, can you refresh my?
CDGB.
Yes, thank you. The CDBG program proposal that she'll prepare in the beginning of the year. And we also want to accelerate our community partnerships. Since the budget was passed yesterday, we want to start having the presentation so folks would come back and hear. We would get their follow-up presentations and their applications for next year. I think it would be ideal if we could give them a little bit more time. So if we could spread that out. But if we've got like 30 folks coming through, that's still a lot of meeting time, or maybe we decide we want to have a little bit longer meetings to accommodate that. So there's a number of things that need to happen over the next few months. And then, believe it or not, it will get warm again.
Yeah, but
So
to Lori's
yeah.
point, I do kind of like this might be something in 6 months from now, but if we were to have some sort of a meeting, maybe even have Mike
Yeah.
come, and where we reach out to all the neighborhood associations and even those neighborhoods without an association, just say, hey, we're having this meeting. It's being sponsored by Goshen. It kind of helps eliminate some of like, who is this? Why are they here? How are they going to try to, is this some outsider who's
great
coming
idea.
in to
Mhm.
try to sell us a, bill of goods? So by us sponsoring it, kind of gives it some legitimacy, and then, see if that is the spark that kind of gets at least a few champions
Yeah.
going. So
I love the idea of inviting all of folks we've identified that are part of the neighborhood leadership in each of the neighborhoods. I think that's a great idea, or anybody else who's stepped forward as a champion. So we have some folks even in HOAs that are trying to do similar things.
One of the things I've noticed at the last two First Fridays in the booth is more engagement.
Awesome.
There are more people coming up and talking to us, and they're interested in the idea of fostering more community through neighborhood associations, and they're real disappointed when their houses are off the end of the map.
They
So,
are.
I think he
Um,
touched on something about that. Like people are really desperate for something positive and hopeful and a way to engage. Sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, no, exactly. But it's been hopeful to see. Because sometimes when we'd sit out there and be like, we're kind of lonely.
Mhm.
But I thought the last two, we were pretty busy.
can I don't know if I need to make a motion or just a suggestion, but because I know with other new business comes in, you begin to forget about things that you discussed 2 or 3 months ago. Can we just kind of have an ongoing agenda item
Sure.
for this so that we don't drop this idea or forget that it exists or whatever? So
Are you making a formal motion
I would like to
to
make a
host
formal motion
a
that we have.
neighborhood leadership meeting where we invite Mike King to be a presenter sometime in the next,
Within 6 months.
I was thinking we could do it in the winter. And then by the time we do a neighborhood walkabout in the summer,
Okay.
we might
Maybe
be
like
more
February
ready.
or March.
Show up and already start thinking about.
Right, it sort of plants the
Mhm.
seed, and then maybe the neighborhood leaders sort of helped us provide
Second half of
guidance. and-
January is usually like nothing's going on.
Yeah.
then, so that might be a good time to have a meeting
We have
too.
enough time to read through that book.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I do like the, when you think of things, what in Goshen can we do, but when you break it down to neighborhoods,
Mhm.
like they come together, it's easier for them to identify in their neighborhood or
Mhm.
things that they'd like to
think would be a good idea in addition to just each of us reading the book is to have discussion time with this group
Mhm.
of understandings and ideas.
That's kind of along the lines of, let's every meeting have that as an agenda item to continue the discussion and our growth of our understanding and that sort of thing. So we get at least more conversant in the 12 steps. And
It's unfortunate. CRC is going to be in a 12-step program.
maybe we can come up with our own.
12-step
Yeah,
neighborhood
yeah,
program.
something like
Well, I think what we're going to do is encourage people to get involved with the 12-step program. I think that could be our role. We can be the conduit to that with our outreach, I think is kind of what the way I see it. So I'd be happy for this group to help facilitate that in any way we can.
So we had a motion. Did we have a second?
Second,
So the motion is to reconvene a meeting in the winter with Mike Keene and inviting representatives of all of our active neighborhood associations or people involved in other neighborhoods that we know of. Does that sound
Yes.
about right?
About right. Yep.
Okay. We have a motion and a
A
second. Do we have a, all in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes. It shall be done.
Do we want to pick a date?
Yes.
So, let me see. Do we want to do it as part of a CRC meeting, or do we want to do it as a separate meeting in a different location?
I think a separate meeting at a time that might be more amenable to people who work.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, I'll tell you what, why don't we have a little bit of time to do that. We'll take a look at some dates and I can communicate with Mike and see if we can get that on his schedule. But the target area would be February or late January, early February, you think? Okay.
One place we might be able to meet would be the park department, the Shanklin Park. They've
Yeah,
got the
Schrock
big fire,
Pavilion.
they got the big fireplace. You can fire
Yeah.
up it. I mean, we can have a nice fire going roaring in the fireplace.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Couple cookies.
Mhm.
All right. Anything else before we move on? So we'll move on to our budget report. Everybody has a copy in their packet. You'll notice that we're starting to, the numbers of the amount spent is a little bit more now because we were starting to, we were paying some bills related to Indigenous Peoples Day. And that'll continue. We're getting those together. So next month, that number will go down further. So, but any other questions on the budget account summary report?
Not directly, but I just want to say that I thought Indigenous Peoples' Day was very successful this year. There was just a different tone to it, being out on the street, and people who otherwise wouldn't have wandered into the theater took advantage of that. And then a lot of them went into to Ignition to hear, get a name,
Madeline Big Bear.
the lady who spoke. Yes.
Right. So, yeah, we can transition into that. I wanted to chat a little bit about how that went. And I agree with Lori. I felt like it went very well. Was a little stressed for a little bit, but once
handled it well.
once everybody got there, I felt much at ease, and the presentations, the dance, the culture, the outfits, the way Madeline Big Bear explained it, it was just casual, and I felt like it was fun for everybody around. I think we had maybe a couple hundred people at one point around, gathered around. And it was, people could come and check it out for a little while and then go, maybe come back. Inside Ignition Garage, I think we had about maybe 50 people. I was hoping some more would wander in, but that was more of just again, it was a casual conversation like atmosphere, and I felt like it was. I just felt like it was more interactive than it was at the theater. So
And people stayed.
mhm.
They weren't wandering in for 10 minutes and getting up
Yeah.
and leaving. They stayed and they listened to her. And they had good questions. Hot in there. But they had good questions.
So, and it was nice that we had things kind of packed in that area. We had all of our information booths. We had a food truck at the end. People were posted up at the Electric Brew watching it. So yeah, I felt like it went very well. And thanks to everybody on this commission for their help. Angie, especially, Angie helped with the organizing the tables, the other tables with the library, historical society, Goshen College. Lori and Angie were there to help man the booths, and I just felt like everything went well once it started going. So, but
Sorry again, I wasn't able to help out this time, but
Oh, that's all right.
plan on being at future
Same.
ones.
I hope you don't think that my not coming is me not being interested. Because of what I do, it takes me out of town a lot. So,
sure.
I will make it whenever I'm able to do it, but so I don't want you to think that I'm not.
Oh, no, not at all. I just wanted to make sure that, Angie gets a shout out because she was a huge help in that regard. Yes.
The most impressive thing was carrying that tent.
Carrying the tent. It is a heavy tent. So
Was it a symbolic cross?
It was intense.
You know,
Int-
Wah, wah.
I thought the industrial one. 'Cause I wrote it down.
Oh. So you said he handled it. What was it a rough start? Like what-
Oh, we just there was some communication that we did the singers and the dancers and the performers that didn't get there until about 15 minutes before the program, and I was having trouble reaching them up until then. So
weren't sure.
yeah. So, but once they showed up, they were on. So I felt I was a happy man after that. So
Good reason too. They've
Yeah.
done 2,400.
right. And I suspected that was the case. They just literally they were like, all right, where are we doing this? There. All right, good. All right, where's the microphone? I was like, here you go.
Like 22 and 14.
She had done, yeah, I think something crazy like that. And talked to a lot of students, fourth graders throughout the state. So, which I thought was encouraging that schools are doing that. And I thought she had some very, very valuable things to say just about even the state of the world right now and kind of how that's still affecting them. So I thought it was, I thought it was well done.
And her knowledge of just the local area. Because she
Mhm.
was able to cite things and everybody in their head was knowing exactly where she was talking.
Exactly. Yeah. I think there's a reason they have her doing this. She's a very good facilitator.
Mhm.
So. Any other business that the commission needs to discuss or anybody wants to bring up or talk about?
Well, just point of information, so it doesn't, just if anyone's interested, tomorrow in Elkhart, there's the National Immigrant Justice
Mhm.
Reform. Anyway, they're doing a talk, when ICE comes to town, know your rights. And it will be held at 6 PM at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Elkhart. And if anyone's interested, I can give some further information.
Sure.
But it'll be an hour and a half, hour presentation with a half hour of questions and answers. But
When is that?
tomorrow at 6
Tomorrow?
PM
And our own
at the Unitarian.
Lisa Coop is leading it.
Oh,
Yeah.
So
La Casa is hoping to pay speakers' fees, so it's others.
Thank you for that, John.
You did have one other thing on your item on your agenda after that.
Oh,
Seven.
First Friday, yes. The Lights Parade, next, First Fridays. Do we want to talk about,
that's in November.
that's in November, yeah. Excuse me, it is in November, isn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah, November. I think we're having a planning meeting with that on Thursday with police and streets, but any thoughts on the CRC wants to participate in that? Do we want to have a table, or do we want to have some sort of presence within the parade itself? Just thought
I
I'd
don't
throw
think
that
there'll
out
be
there.
any tables, but it would be a float, a lighted float.
A lighted float. So any suggestions for a lighted float if we want to be involved, or we could,
Does anyone have a cool car or truck or something?
I got a 2012 Volkswagen Passat that is a manual transmission. I don't think I want to be driving that in the parade.
Could we somehow represent the neighborhood associations on there?
Yeah, I like
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So are we talking, again, if we're in the float, some sort of vehicle, we're talking about having some signage that says Community Relations Commission supporting neighborhood associations or something along those lines.
We would have to figure out the signage to make sure that it's readable. It will be dark too. So
Being lights.
Lights. Yeah,
Oh, lights.
around it. But I'm just thinking the time it would take to prepare the sign to go on the vehicle, don't want to wait until a couple days before, try to figure that out. So
It's getting close to that time, but the third week in October is fall break, and I'm could be really available to help
okay.
the week of the 20th.
we need,
I have the ability to decorate. I have experience with the Green Oaks
okay,
or bus, the mini bus, but I don't know. I don't have a vehicle that would be conducive to that. Four-door Civic.
trying to think of somebody with, kind of a cooler type of vehicle that would,
Yeah. Let's think about it, and we can communicate.
Like pickup truck that
Yeah.
Well, Mike, you might check with the different departments and see if they would have like a trailer
Yeah, I was
available.
thinking about that.
And
And a tractor even, or
Yeah, we're not
big
pulling it.
lawn truck. I mean, the leaf trucks or whatever, something cool that represents the city that's pulling. I don't
Golf carts.
know. I'm sure there's.
I
lots
will
of-
be
I'm sure the city has. a
there
lot of
in all
fun-
my golf cart glory.
I was gonna say, it's the mayor mobile being
Oh,
used,
yes.
that makes
a lot of fun toys.
It's
city doesn't have.
it's the city has many. So we decorate our there's a dump truck, one of the fire trucks. The firefighters really love the light parade, so they decorate one of the fire trucks, and then they usually have the Grinch in the bucket of the fire truck and Santa
Grinch.
somewhere.
Did they have any old antique fire trucks that sit in a garage somewhere? And
The one that they use is one that they use for training for the Red Hawk Academy. So it's, but it would be they're already planning to use that
Use
one.
that.
So we'd have to find something else. But I think Mike, in communication with the department heads, you might be able to see if there's willingness from the CRC to do the decorating. Would somebody have something available that wouldn't be used at that time of year?
Maybe we can consider renting something cool.
Yeah, I think that was the Parks Department. So Parks has a float. Mhm. Mhm.
You have a vehicle that could pull a trailer.
Oh, there's my,
And then the trailer is probably easier to decorate than a
Yeah,
moving
yeah.
vehicle.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
And then is there like going to be, I know I participated for the Democratic Party at the parade in Elkhart. And they had us in a truck, like throwing candy out. Is there something similar that we could be doing as, members of the commission? And
Well, we could be walking alongside it and handing out, candy or yeah, we could figure out some sort of, we should have some money in our budget if we
Yeah.
wanted to spend some money on treats and
Treats,
or
yeah.
giveaways or things like that. So,
Angie's inspired. I see great
Yeah,
things
she
in our
is.
future.
yeah, maybe along with the candy, we can have our little postcards with the,
Join a neighborhood association.
yeah, join a neighborhood. So, yeah, if everybody wants
12-step program.
our 12 step. Yeah.
Angela, I don't have any experience decorating, but I am tall, so I'm happy to help get those things.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, if everybody wants to, think about it for a little bit, come up with some ideas, and then
Date, does anyone know?
the date
November
would be
7th.
November 7th. Yeah. So,
And I'll make sure of that.
so November 7th. So, but yeah, if everybody wants to think about it, come up with some ideas, send those to me, and then I can kind of coordinate all of the communication between us, and we can come up with a plan. Yeah, and I think we can come up with something pretty cool. So, yeah, if you can get some ideas to me by maybe the end of the week, and then we can get started on that, and we can continue to communicate. Mm-hmm.
So I should be available that week of the 20th and probably through the next weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure that the weekend of First Fridays I'll be out of town, but
Okay.
I can help decorate, put the lights up or whatever.
All right, so I will first thing I'll do is I'll let Amanda with First Fridays know that we want to have a float, and then I can communicate with as the mayor said the department heads, see what possibilities for like a trailer or a vehicle that we might be able to come up with, and then if everybody wants to think about how we might want to decorate, what we might want to give away,
Signage.
let's start thinking about that. And
Are there like key things that people would recognize in each of the neighborhoods? And I mean, like something that's the
like
neighborhood's known for,
landmarks in each
Landmarks, yeah.
one, or
that could be somehow represented with the neighborhood association.
Mhm.
I had this dream idea. You know how you get the water bottles that have a sticker for, the national parks or whatever.
Right.
Yeah,
That'd be super cool if we had like a water bottle that had like stickers for each neighborhood that you could collect or
Yeah.
something along those lines. Well, I was thinking to your point, like coming up with an iconic element, almost like a brand for each neighborhood.
yeah.
So it's like, Chamberlain, maybe it's the Chamberlain School, I don't know what it would be, or the Boys and Girls Club, or yeah, like there's the dam, different elements that are sort of evoke a sense of pride about that particular part of the city.
Throwing this out there too, if you come up with a idea for medallion or something, we have 3D printers. We could print off some cool medallions or, you know,
No, I love the idea of some kind of element that's,
Should be able to come up with something for each.
Yeah.
Each of the neighborhoods.
mhm.
You know, for Parkside, I would immediately think of Southside Soda Shop,
Yeah.
but
The same-
but
Mhm.
now Southside neighborhood would claim it or something. I know, but the name,
And
I don't cross that part of it.
Yeah.
yeah. I'll ask Nick if he can change the name to Parkside Soda Shop and then. I'm sure he'll be
Some
open.
and
good
Champlin
ideas
Park would
brewing.
Be,
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
I do like the idea of the stickers, the water bottle stickers. I think that might be ambitious to try to pull off by the parade, but I think that's something longer term that we can
Well,
can
There's
try
the
to come up
4-H
with.
parade.
4-H
Mhm.
parade, or even just
Just to
Yeah.
carry
The
the
theme
theme have
feature of
around
First
just to-
Fridays to have them,
Well, I
like
think-
people could walk up and would say, oh, what neighbor? Oh, here's your neighborhood bottle.
Yeah.
I mean, we
water.
do have some unspent resources. It might be worth talking to James
right. As
at
far as
Eider and
logos,
see, about a series, if we could come up with a list of a way to represent each neighborhood. We could talk
Mhm.
to him about that.
and as far as vehicles, if you're doing like, if you're looking into a trailer, then one of the park pickups would be
Mhm,
good enough to pull that.
mhm.
yeah. Yeah, we have a car too that if we need to, I could has a hitch on it that we could use.
My question is, I'm not sure. if you-
Yeah.
You're welcome.
All right. I will make a note of that. Thank you. Go cruising in Phil's
Not a
pickup.
tax, it's not a beauty.
We could stick some lights on it and it wouldn't be a catastrophe. Mhm.
All right. Yeah, good idea. So let's continue to think about that, and whatever ideas you have this week, go ahead and get them to me, and I'll put together kind of a sheet, and we can talk about it further. All right. Well, thank you for pointing that out. I almost skipped that. That was a good conversation. So, all right. If there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Do I have-
Second that.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.